Ian Umstead, thank you for taking your time to do this, man. How's it
Yeah,
going?
no problem. Good, good. Doing well. Doing well.
So you just finished some training this evening. What were you up to?
I did, yeah. Today my Mondays are pretty training heavy. I get up early before work and then get a workout in, predominantly hangboarding and some weights. Then I'll go to work all day and then I'll come home and I'll train for another few hours.
It's crazy, man.
Today was like hangboard. Do what?
Oh, we got a little delay. It's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, this evening I did a little bit of plyometrics. Ultimately, the whole workout is typically 3 or 4 hours, and I'll start out with some cardio, like 5, 10 minutes on the bike. Then I'll do some shoulder mobility, and then plyometrics to get the lower body warmed up. Some ab wheels, some other shoulder exercises, and then I'll stretch for a bit.
Right
And
on.
that's just like the start. And then I go into a 10-minute hangboard warm up. That's a progressive warm up. So I start on like a bigger edge, bigger holds, and then just progressively work my way down for the course of 10 minutes. So it's like 15 seconds on, 45 seconds off for 10 minutes, with gradually progressing down from a big full hand edge to 8 millimeters, which is it's like a fourth of an inch or an eighth of an inch actually. So it's pretty tiny. And then that once that's done, um, then I'll start working out. And today was about 40 minutes of limit bouldering. I didn't get to do as much as I normally do because I wanted to try to be on time tonight, um, as best as possible. And then I go into a workout called 30-30s, which is, in my opinion, one of the most effective workouts that a sport climber can do for hard bouldery routes. The energy system that it tests, and that it trains is a little bit more um, long end power endurance. So essentially, that 30-30 workout is 30 seconds on of hard climbing, 30 seconds off, and you do 6 reps, and then you rest 15 minutes or so, and then I do 4 sets of that. The middle 2 sets, though, I use a weight vest. So I throw on like today was like 8 pounds for the first set, 9 pounds for the second set, which is pretty heinous and it's really hard, but it helps the explosiveness, it helps build upper body strength, helps big finger strength, and then also trains that energy system, to help you not get pumped whenever you're climbing these hard boulder sport routes. And then ate some food, and now I'm here. So it's good little workout tonight.
So I guess I skipped the most important part. Congratulations for making your spot on the USA ice climbing team.
Yeah, thank you. That was pretty cool. I kind of just got into that last year, about August. I started. So I was in Rifle with Rifle Mountain Park. It's a climbing, really popular sport climbing area in Rifle, Colorado, and was there with a couple buddies, who happened to be members of the national team, the ice climbing national team.
Ah,
And then they knew I had this new affinity for dry tooling, and it's basically rock climbing but with ice climbing tools and crampons on your feet. So it's a really niche, a really odd, really goofy sport, but it's really fun. So I kind of got stoked on it. They knew I had a little stoke on it, and that started in like March of last year. So I had been going out every once in a while, playing on tools, and then they're like, "You should try out for the team." I'm like, "You're crazy! Like trying out for the national team? I just picked up dry tooling like a couple months ago.
right.
Like you should do it anyway. You're strong." I was like, "Fine, whatever." Um, so I was like, deep down, I was like, "Well, if I'm gonna actually do this, I got to do it right." So I spent 8 weeks training on tools. So instead of sport climbing training, I just transitioned mostly to climbing on tools. And climbing on tools helped me grow a bit of an endurance base, as well as just some big pull muscle strength. Um, and ultimately, a new kind of movement. It's just weird movement. It's difficult movement, and it's odd and fun. Um, and I trained really hard for that. I went to tryouts, ended up making the team. So that was really cool. And ultimately, that provided me the opportunity to represent the U.S. In some European and World Cups across the world. So this winter, I got to compete in Korea, in Cheongsong, South Korea, uh, Oulu, Finland, Sunderland, United Kingdom. I also competed in Edmonton, Canada, and then I competed in Ure here in Colorado, and then also got to spend some time in Italy dry tooling as well. So that provided me with some amazing opportunities to travel again. I don't even know if you knew this, Alan, but I spent some time in Europe in a previous life before I mentioned it, before the ski resorts. Um, and I lived over there for a bit racing bicycles. So prior to a ski bum life and a rock climbing life, I was pursuing bike racing professionally. So it was cool to get back to Europe, get to travel again because I hadn't traveled since uh, August of 2017. So it was really cool to get back on the horse and get over the sea.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up because I was doing some more research on you. So when were you over there? Like, what ages were you racing bikes?
Yeah, so I started racing in so I was senior in high school, 2013, I think it was. I think I started riding in 2012. I was trying to I was getting stoked on motocross again because I had a background in motocross. And at the time, all the pros were cross training on road bikes. So I was like, oh,
Mm,
well, I can do that. I have an endurance background. I ran cross country all through high school,
all right.
in middle school. So I was a natural endurance athlete at that point. So I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. Um, I started riding on my dad's 1980 Raleigh Scott Tinley, like this steel bike that was 6 sizes too big for me.
And probably extremely
Absolutely
heavy.
super awkward and extremely heavy. Yes, the thing
Yeah.
probably weighed 30 pounds. It was insane. And like, oh, this is kind of okay, but this bike sucks. It's top of the line back in the 80s, but in 2012, it was not all that
Yeah.
fancy. So then I was like, at the time I had a drum kit and I was like trying to play drums because I wanted to do what every high school kid wanted to do is be in a metal band. And then I was like, I don't need to do that. So I was just like, I'll sell my drum set and then I'll buy a real road bike. And then my dad's like, no, you're not selling your drum set. I was like, fine.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll buy your drum set from you. I'm like, okay. Uh, so basically that just meant he bought me my first road bike. So,
Right.
um, I ended up getting a lower end road bike, just got into it, and then started just riding and riding and riding and riding. And I think like in the first couple months, I put like for like 5,000 miles on that bike, and I'd gotten
Oh.
stoked. By that point, it was about graduation, um, and then saved up some money, bought a real road bike, and that's when the affinity for racing started. I kind of had put motocross to the side because I came to a realization that all my friends were broke off. They all were just hurt all the time. It was
Hmm.
expensive and dangerous. And I was like, oh, I'll just race road bikes instead. It's got to be cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Um, not not really.
No.
My road bikes were just as expensive as road bikes. So
Yeah.
it was it was an interesting transition, but I just got hooked, and I have a mentality, a pretty hard work ethic, and a very goal driven mindset. So I set these goals, ended up getting plugged in with a great program, an academy down in Texas by the name of Williams Racing Academy, and had a great coach, and I put in a lot of work, and ultimately was able to progress to the semi-professional level within a couple years. And then ultimately around the fifth year I was in the sport, I had kept going over to Europe in the summers, um, and then tried to pursue that professionally. Unfortunately, never signed a contract. Was in that stage where I was just trying to find a team, specifically in Europe, because I just wanted to really commit and do it over there.
Yeah.
Bike racing over there is on a whole nother level. So I tried that, ended up getting hurt in some time in Italy. So I was 23 at the time. Tendonitis in the knee that just wouldn't go
Oh,
away, and it just took time. But at that point, um, I just ended up deciding to hang up the boots, and it's like, well, I want to do something I've always wanted to do. So I moved to Colorado and started working at Keystone. So
oh yeah.
the
That
bike
was
life was from about 18 to 23. I retired when I was 23.
okay. That's the coolest thing about these sports, man, is it gets you to go and visit, travel, live, whatever the case may be in certain situations, so many different places. It's awesome.
Mhm.
I mean, you
It
just
was
told me
awesome. So I spent
you
most of my time in Belgium. Oh, go
oh
ahead.
right. Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, it got you to go all over Europe. You just went to 4 different countries
Hmm.
on the ice climbing team. Like, it's incredible, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to been able to travel. That's one thing I always like to tell people. It's just like if you get the opportunity, definitely go travel when you can when you're young.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I went Belgium. I've been to Belgium on 3 different occasions. 2 of those trips I got to go to France, the Netherlands, um, Italy. Spent quite a bit of time in Italy. I've been into Switzerland. I've ridden in Switzerland, driven through Luxembourg, Germany, um, all over Europe, and then this year got to do the Finland, Northern Europe, Northern Scandinavia. Spent more time in Germany in the airport than I care to admit because all my layovers were in Germany because I flew Lufthansa, which is basically the southwest of Europe.
Mm.
Um, and then the UK, got to spend some time in Venice, which was Venice is Venice. It's
Yeah,
it's cool. Go see once, and then you're like, okay, I walked down
yeah.
enough canals and got lost enough times. I'm good.
Right. It's more of like an art harbor. It's more about the
Exactly.
art and culture.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so you obviously always had an adventurous spirit. It's just been something
Yeah.
in you
Yeah.
that's taken you a
Hmm.
lot of
Yeah. I've had
places.
that ever since I was a little one.
So
Grew up the traditional sports, but then once I decided not to play college soccer, that's when I got into um, all the kind of endurance adventure sports.
right. Yeah, I played basketball in high school, so and they ran us. I don't even know how many miles in 2 hours of sprints. Um, but I was weird about team sports. Like I liked skateboarding, um, BMX, just
Hmm.
because then you're competing against yourself essentially when you do these type of things, skiing, snowboarding,
Exactly.
and
Hmm.
you're just like,
Yep.
okay, can I be better than last time?
Exactly. I
Right.
definitely had my phases with those two. I was definitely a skater kid from like 6th grade to 8th grade, and then my soccer coach made me choose. He's like, you're either gonna skate or you're gonna play soccer, and I knew I had a potential future in soccer and not in professional skateboarding. I
Right.
was super stoked. I did like kickflip board slide down like my little zero rail, and then I was like mega stoked. I was like, oh, I'm like a good skater, and
Yeah.
then like that's kind of where it ended. I to this day have never done a Smith clean, and I there's no telling how many thousands of attempts of trying to get a clean Smith grind the entire 8 feet of the rail and never got it. It's so
Yeah.
frustrating. Could not figure out how to keep the back foot weight up down just enough and the front foot up just enough to go clean.
Right, right. Yeah, I was never really a great skateboarder. I love riding like vert if it's smaller, like
Mm,
4 to 6 feet.
yeah,
But
the mini
yeah,
ramps.
yeah,
Mm,
mini ramps. Like I was just never good enough to like send it. So it was kind of one of those things. It's like, all right,
yeah,
like you said, I keep getting hurt. Where's this going to lead?
yeah,
These days I'm lucky
exactly.
to get out and do like a shove it. you know, do you still
Yep.
skate at all anymore?
No, I dabble. It's still in the garage, but
Right.
every once in a while I'll just pull it out, do a kickflip, land bolts. I'm like, oh, I still got it. I'll do a big flip or not a big flip, but a 360 shove. And I'm like, that's an easy way to loop out. And then every once in a while I can pull a tray out of my butt somehow.
You're
But
a
yeah,
better skater than I've
tray
ever was
flips
then.
were.
I
It's
couldn't
muscle
even kick
memory. It's
flip.
just like one of those
Yeah,
things. I learned it when I was how if I was in between sixth and eighth grade, so I was like not even a teenager. Like by the
right,
time I was 13, I had already stopped skating, but it's just something I did so much, like riding a bike at that point, that once you learn how to flick and where your feet go on the board, and being an adult male now and having that strength to always
Mhm.
pop when you need it to.
Right.
Um, yeah, so the tray flips are still hard. Hard flips I can't do anymore, but I can still kick flip every once in a while.
Yeah, it's fun. I like to dabble with it just so I feel adventurous still.
Yeah.
But
When I was living in Summit, I was going to the SFC deals on Sunday nights, and they had a mini ramp there, and it was always fun to go play on the mini ramp.
yeah, I mean, I'll still go skate ramps. Actually, me and my buddy just went like I don't know, probably 6 months ago. We went. There was this little park that had a metal half pipe. I will not get on concrete. There's no way. It's just that fall, that impact. I'm 41 now, man. I don't
It
fall like
does.
I used to. Also, yeah. Speaking of
Yeah,
that,
it hits hard.
the other reason why I could never do a kickflip is like when I learned to skate whenever I was like 4 and 5 years old. Like pros were just barely doing
Uh,
kickflips, so it wasn't a thing. And it always was crazy to
yeah.
me when I started skating again in my late 20s. I'm like, these kids are just way better than me. Like it was kind of embarrassing. Now I feel like I've reached
Uh,
that status where like I can be the old guy who shows up with the helmet and pads and just rides vert.
yeah, no kidding. Yep, just rolling, cruising the bowl
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Steve Caballero.
yeah, man. So, just like skateboarding, like climbing is definitely a mental game, right? You, like you said, you're always been an endurance athlete, and like it's endurance sports are mental. Like right when you want to quit is when you definitely don't need to.
Mhm.
Like, how do you overcome
Yeah,
that?
no kidding. Um, well, a lot of this training that I've been doing helps with that because if you can get your body physiologically ready, um, it takes that edge off a little bit. And especially in sport climbing, because when you're sport climbing, you're clipping bolts, you're climbing a little bit higher, you're clipping more bolts. And a lot of folks don't necessarily know the differences between the climbing disciplines. Um, Bouldering. Some people may have heard of bouldering. You go to a bouldering gym. Um, it's no ropes, but you're only climbing like 15 to 18 feet, sometimes less than that. And then you have pads on the ground, and then that's what protects you when you fall. Sport climbing, which is primarily what the discipline that I specialize in, there are pre-drilled bolts with hangers in the rock already. So you put carabiners or quick draws, as we call them. So it's got two pair carabiners, um, a dog bone is what we call it, in between, and then another carabiner, and then that's what you clip into. And ultimately, as you climb up, you clip those bolts. So your protection is always at that bolt. And it's super solid. These things, you could literally hang a car off of them. They're
Really?
rated for 22 kilonewtons, which is over 5,000 pounds. Yeah. So very, very, very safe and secure. And then there's traditional climbing or trad climbing, as we say. That's where you're predominantly like a lot of crack climbing. So you're climbing up through the crack and you're plugging in cams, which are active protection, or nuts, as we call them, is passive protection. So that would be basically a V slot, and then the nut would go in the middle of it. And then if you pull down on it, it kind of snugs into place. And then a
Okay.
cam is a device that you pull a trigger and it squeezes it in. You stick it in, and then it gets bigger. And then that's not the discipline I really like. I like the safety of my bolts. I'm a safety guy by trade. That's
Yeah.
what I do for a living is safety and construction. So I like the safer option. And with sport climbing, like you said, it's a huge mental game. And in trad climbing, it's all mental game because did I place my gear right? I don't want to fall on that gear. Like I don't necessarily know if it's going to hold. But in sport climbing, I'm just like, yeah, I got bolts below me. I'm going to do these really hard moves. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to try to get through this crux sequence or this long endurance sequence. Um, I really like checkpointing climbing, which basically is you climb a little bit, you do some hard climbing, and you get to an okay hold or a good rest, and then you can shake, and that's where you get your head ready for the next section. You shake out, you get the lactic acid, try to get some of that out of your arms, and then you keep climbing, and then you got to get through that next crux or that next sequence. and then get to that hopefully next checkpoint, and then you can rest some more, and then so on and so forth, depending on how many sequences there are. That's more of like an enduro style climbing. Sometimes there's pure enduro where there's not really checkpoints per se. It's just like you're just plugging and chugging, you're just climbing. And then every hold is like not all that terrible. So you can just keep climbing. And then other times, which lately I've been more into that style, is very punchy, very bouldery. So it's just like really freaking hard for a short period of time and then it lets up. Or you get to a really, really good rest and then like you got a little bit more hard climbing after that. But getting your mind right is like so important. And honestly, like some of my sins have been when my mind was either really bad or really good. I've sent multiple, well, I would say some of my most difficult routes, whether it be on the dry towing side or the sport climbing side, on goes where I'm just like, ugh, I'll just do one more go. I'll just do it for fitness. Like you're you're just not stoked, or you're feeling a little down, or the weather's kind of crappy. There's like something that's bothering you, and you're just like, I'm just gonna climb, no cares in the world, and then you just walk up the thing. And that's happened on a couple occasions, and you're just like, oh well, it was literally in my mind. Um, you were super stoked the first go, and like head was right, you're mega psyched, and you thought everything was going to go good, and then you punt off of it or you fall off of it, and you're just like, what the heck just happened? And then other times you just like kind of like, well, I'm just going to go back up for fitness lap, and then you send. So it's all in the mindset, and honestly, in the comp side of things too, it's a lot about that too. So this year was my first time comp climbing, and it was, oh my gosh, the head game, the nerves. Like I remember when I pulled onto the first hold in Korea. So my first international competition was in Korea at a World Cup. Um, and like I literally pulled on, and I'm just like shaking on my tools, like going up. I'm just like shaking. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous right now. And my head was not there. And I knew there was a spot I picked out on the route that was like, I need to get to that. And if I get to that, I should be able to chill out, compose myself a little bit more, and keep climbing. And I did. And then I got twisted up in the rope a little higher up, which was kind of annoying.
Mm.
Um, I learned something in every single comp this year, which was so important. Just get all the screw ups out of the way in my first year, um, and then hopefully learn from them. So next year, I don't make those mistakes. Um, but it was funny. I did one of the comps I did at a European Cup in England. I did okay on in qualifiers. I I was pretty stoked with how I climbed, but I made a mistake that kind of sandbagged me a little bit because I accidentally skipped a clip in the middle of the climb. I had topped the route, but then when I got down, they're like, "Hey, you skipped a clip. You don't get the top." I was like, "Oh, well, that hurt
What?
really bad." I was quite frustrated about that, and then I felt really, really confident. Thought I could probably make finals that competition. Didn't make finals, unfortunately. And then the next day, I um, I went back. We were able to climb on the finals routes, and it was there's no stress. I just went to climb. It was just a climbing day, and I flashed the finals route. So flash means I sent it first go.
Mm.
Which had I done that in finals, that potentially could have put me in a podium position, maybe. So it was like the mindset was huge. It's like, holy cow, I just did the finals route. But I had no stress. There was no stress in the world. I was just out there having fun with my friends. So it's really crazy how the mind can affect how you perform physically. Um, and I see that both in dry towing and in sport climbing.
Right. So does your experience doing that help you in your daily life? Like, I mean, like, so basically you got to be pretty confident to just like send it up a wall like that, even though you've had your moments where your nerves are shaking, like you just said. That time, you just sent it. How does that help you in your daily life and your mental state?
It definitely, I think, helps to keep a solid head. To just yeah, in life in general.
Mm.
Having stoke for what you do helps a lot. Having enjoying my job helps a lot, and always striving for that next goal. And that's how I've lived my life for a long time. Is I set a goal and I do everything in my power to achieve that goal. And if I am getting these small wins, so I live life like a sport climber in a sense. I always look for those checkpoints, um, and those small wins per se. So there's life, and then there's training. There's cruxes. The training could be a crux, and then once the training's over, I get to a rest day. That's a small win. Or I'll set these little mini goals. I'm like, okay, I want to hang 120 pounds off the 20 mil edge this week. Um, and it might take a couple weeks to train up to being able to get there. But once I get there, I'm like, sick. That's a good checkpoint. Let's let's go back. Let's take a step back, and then let's make 3 steps forward. Um, and then just with being able to work that in with work too, because I'm one who gives 110% at work and 110% at home and in training, which for a lot of people can be very, very difficult. But if you have good time management and time and a, a, a want to achieve that goal, it's definitely doable. So being able to have a strong mindset to be successful in my occupation as well as in my athletics is basically what I strive for, and that's how I can keep a sane head, and keep my mindset good.
Right.
Because if it's my stress release is training, so I thankfully don't have to get stressed all that often. But when I do, I just like dive in even harder to training and train even harder, um, and that's a release. So I've always been that way, whether it was with endurance sports or now with more um, strength oriented sports.
Hmm.
Uh,
A little bit of
and just
both.
something about the climbing, at least, yeah.
That's awesome. That seems to be a common theme with people that I'm talking to. I actually had Wit on, and we were talking about how
Yeah.
the PCT like transformed his life, and it's like it's if you can conquer the mental game
Hmm.
on intense, hard challenges, usually it's going to make you
Yeah.
live your life better. It sounds like you're nailing it.
No kidding. I try.
I mean,
I
well,
give
hopefully you'll get.
everything 110%.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be too discouraged that you didn't hit the podium your first year. I can't believe you picked up a sport in
I
what
know,
three
right?
weeks. You're one of 11 people on the men's team. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. It was like 8 weeks, but I did. I missed the podium by in year A this year. I was fourth, so that was my best placement. That was a North. Well, that was a year. That was another Continental Cup a year. It wasn't in a European Cup because it was in the United States, but
Right.
same caliber of event. I ended up tying for third, but my default, the tiebreaker was my qualification spot, and I qualified one position behind the individual who was third. So when we both tied, I got knocked back down to the qualifying position. So I was mega stoked on that. That was my second competition. So
Wow.
that one went pretty well. Everything just like flowed. I ended up in flow state, and there's something that just being in flow state's a weird feeling. In hindsight, you're just like, whoa, I just flowed. It just everything was fluid, everything happened perfectly, and you just move, and then you're done, and you're like, whoa, that was a very successful run. Or when I used to surf, it was the same way. It's like you paddle in, and then you drop into the wave, and then as soon as you kind of hit the bottom of the tranny, you just start going, especially front side. Um, it's just like feels so good, and you're just in flow state until you get freaking whacked by the next wave that comes over. But um,
Where did you
yeah,
surf at?
I cut my teeth at Huntington Beach, and I definitely got worked more times than I care to admit.
Oh, Huntington Beach, I guess, is where you were surfing.
Yeah, I surfed HB Northside a lot,
Nice.
and
That's
then
what I haven't got to
surfing
do that yet.
before work. Yeah, it's fun. I learned to surf actually New Smyrna Beach back in like I was young. Um, yeah, I was quite young, but I learned to surf in New Smyrna, in the shark bite capital of the world. Ended up seeing sharks my first time surfing, which was a trip. I've surfed um, the jetty in Destin there. I think I've surfed Pensacola once,
Okay.
and then in Huntington Beach is where I predominantly did, and then kind of up along that coast. And then I realized that surfing before climbing was not very conducive because then my hands were trash and I couldn't climb, so I just quit surfing.
Uh, I got you. Yeah, man, I'd love to surf. There's a big group of people that do it out here. They look like they're having a blast. I am a little sketched out about the
It's a good
sharks.
time.
They have
I don't
like
think you see them as much on in the Gulf. They're there, but they're not. I don't think they're as
eh,
frequent as they are over on the other side.
it's getting a little bad now.
Maybe they're still there.
With the temperatures rising, there's a little more bull sharks. Like they're saying it's pretty bad around here now, but it's also seasonal, so you
Oh,
just got to get out
really?
there at the right time. Yeah, the rising
Mm,
water temperatures are definitely changing the whole climate. But there's
that's
still
true.
people out
Yeah.
there. I mean, I'm like this. If I'm out in the
Yeah.
ocean and I'm the only one in the ocean, I get a little sketched out and I'm always looking around, make sure there's nothing around me. But like if there's
Yeah.
other people out, I'm like, well, now it's just an odds game. Who they're gonna bite?
Yeah. Yeah. I had one of those days out there once, and yeah, that was an interesting. That's my one shark story from the West Coast. That one was interesting. There's a
Well,
reason there was no one else in the water that day. Yeah.
did they have sightings? I guess.
There was a shark attack that morning
Oh,
on the south side of the pier. So they shut the south side of the pier 2 miles south of it down, but they left the north side of the pier open. Who would have thought a shark would swim through the pier around the pier? But they left the north side open. I zip out there after work one day and I paddle out. And I'm like, sick. The lineup's empty. And I'm just going to go have a ball. And then I'm out there for like an hour and a half, just paddling, just doing my thing. And then, like, 2 hours later, like, three or four more guys paddle out. And then we're just chatting in the lineup. And, like, oh, yeah, the shark won't get us on this side of the pier. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, didn't you know there's a shark attack this morning on the other side of the pier? It's like, you gotta be kidding me. And it just so happened my mom was out there and she was just out on the pier watching, and it was like, oh, wouldn't that be par for the course? I get eaten by a shark, my mom's watching. So she was not too happy after I found out about that one.
hopefully it wasn't Mother's Day.
Not long after. It was in June, I think. Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to any aspiring athletes who are looking to break into the world of climbing or any other extreme sport? And I just found out tonight that you've had your hands on a lot more sports than I realized.
Yeah. I've dabbled in just about everything, it seems like, minus wakeboarding. That was just not a feasible one for me back then. But um, whether it have been traditional athletics, like, that you bring up with when you're in grade school, or any action sport, whether it be motocross, cycling, snowboarding, whitewater kayaking, I actually do as well. That scares the crap out of me. Um, and then climbing. Haven't dabbled in base jumping yet, but I would assume it's kind of similar, but maybe not. But that's probably one I'll keep my feet at least on the ground to some extent, or unless I have a rope attached to me.
Right.
But yeah, so I actually got to write an article and do another interview with my old high school, and this was one of those questions that was brought up, is like, what advice do you give? And um, a lot of it has to deal with goals and setting goals and achievable goals. I think it's very important that folks set big, audacious goals, or bogs, as I call them, or bags, BHAGs. It's a something I actually picked up from work, but it's a big, hard, audacious goal, and that's what I've always done. I've set a really lofty, really hard goal, and then you do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. And in the process of that, you set these small goals, like I was talking about, those small wins. So I believe anyone can achieve something and get to an elite level or even their personal best. And not everyone wants to be a professional athlete. Not everyone wants to be the best at something. They might just want a personal challenge, and to be the best that person can actually be, and be the best person they want to be. And setting those small goals is the first step. You say, okay, I want to do this. And then you look back, what do I have to do to achieve that? And then you have to take the self discipline to go ahead and do those things. If you're able to set those small goals, and then enough small goals lead to a big goal, enough big goals lead to that big, hard, audacious goal. And with hard work, determination, dedication, and a little bit of sacrifice, those are like the things you need. And not everyone wants to do that. That's the hard part. Is it's like, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to be the best? How bad do you want to be your personal best? And it all boils down to the work you're going to put into it. Ever since I was a little kid, I've just had this drive, and a lot of it stemmed from my father. So Dad was a Division I athlete in the '80s. He played college
Oh, wow.
football, um, and was fairly successful in that. And then he was a graduated, was a college football coach for a little bit, and then went into his career in education. And so both my parents are teachers as well. So my dad's a professor, my mom's a teacher. So
Oh, nice.
um, been very fortunate about that, because they've always kept me on the straight and narrow in regards to your priorities are academics, and sports are secondary to academics, because you need to learn. And then if you're able to do both, even better. And that's what's helped me to do the same thing in life now, is it's occupation and athletics. And if you can do both at 110%, then you can be very successful. So for anyone wanting to get to the next level, whether their next level is to run a 5K, run a 10K, run a half marathon, run a marathon, do an Ironman or an Ironman 70.3, which is a half one, doing a backflip on a snowboard, um, sending their first, leading their first rock climb, like all those things have stepping stones that lead up to them. And if someone puts in the work, um, they stay dedicated. And that's the thing a lot of people don't understand, is like they want to be good, and they want to be good quickly. And I am the worst person in regards to that. I wanted to be the best as quickly as possible, and I still do. But I also put in a crap ton of work to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes time, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of sacrifice. So you've got to be willing to put in the time to set the goals and see the goals through. And if you can put in those three things as well, with the grit, determination, and the hard work ethic, then a lot of people can achieve anything they want to. And then dad taught me that. It's just like, set your mind to it, bust your butt, set your goals, and do what you can to achieve them. And I think anyone can be successful with that mindset.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you're doing it right. So, what is your future plans? You just are you pursuing the podium? Is that what we're doing now?
Yeah. I still got to be a little optimistic, um, for next year. It'll be my second year. I'm coming into it with a little bit more experience. I'll have a lot more fitness. Um, Kind of depends on if the Russians are competing next year. They're pretty freaking good,
Really?
and they fill up the final, the top eight pretty frequently when they're competing.
Dude, no shit.
Um, yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, that's a goal. So continuing to grow in my field, my craft, and as a safety professional within my company is obviously a huge one. And then I'm doing lots of stuff in regards to work that to try to progress that way. Um, and then on the athletic side, I'm also try to do like a professional occupation person, a safety professional, but
Mm-hmm.
also to try to be a professional athlete again. Um, and whether that be in dry tooling, well, it would hopefully in dry tooling, and mixed climbing, um, and then just being a well-rounded athlete too. So I'm trying to climb at a hard level, not that hard in the grand scheme of hard climbing, but ideally this next year, I hopefully can break into like the 14B range. I've done one 14A now, um, and I'm hoping to do another one here in the next couple months before I start training for dry tooling again, and then hopefully try to achieve that goal of 14B, and then maybe something even further down the road. From dry tooling perspective, though, there's a route in Italy called the Line Above the Sky, which at one point was the hardest route in the world. It's thus not become the hardest route in the world because there's a lot more harder stuff.
Mm.
Um, but it's iconic, and it's kind of like the benchmark D15 that an individual by the name of Tom Ballard put up in 2016, I believe. So it's kind of the standard and benchmark, and kind of like this is like the intro into hard dry tooling in the world. It's about 50 meters long, so 150 feet, and it goes across this cave, basically from one side to the other. And most of it is big moves on figure fours and figure nines, so inversions on
On
the
the
tools.
ceiling?
That's basically what. Yes, through the ceiling. Yep.
That's crazy.
So your feet aren't on for 3/4 of the route. You can be feet on, which would be DTS or dry tool style. That's just another style of dry tooling where you only use your feet. You don't invert. And inversions basically is where you put your legs over your arms. So you're resting your legs over your arms. Um, and this route, basically, you'll be hanging upside down for at least 20 to 25 minutes with no feet on. So you're just on your arms that entire time. So that's going to take a lot of training and a lot of determination, a lot of mental. That's another thing with these
Hmm.
long dry tool routes. It's how long can you hold on to your tools, and how can you keep your head while you're pumped out of your mind. There's so much lactic acid that just builds up in your arms and your forearms and your biceps when you're just hanging there, and then your hands just want to just pry open.
Right.
So a lot of finger strength comes into that too. Um, so being able to keep it together here as well as keep it together here is the key to success on those long dry tool routes. So there's that, and then ideally, yes, I'm shooting for finals. That's the goal this year. Whether it's a podium or not, there's a lot of amazing dry toolers out there and a lot of great competitors, and I'm still learning. So uh, as cool as that would be, I think the main goal for this year, that's a more realistic goal, is to make finals. So that's the top 8 um, after semifinals. So I think that would be pretty cool. Make semis would be the first one because I didn't make semis this year in a World Cup. And then if I can make semis and then just like fully commit, fully focus, and then try to be prepared and to be ready to hopefully be fit enough and strong enough to make finals.
Well, I think that I have a feeling that with your determination and mental game, that you are probably going to hit that goal sooner than you think.
I hope so. That would be really
Oh,
cool.
and you were, by the way, you were on the USA team, so you are a professional.
I guess I feel like I'm earning my keep a little bit more and more now. At first, it was like, this doesn't feel right. I've never led an ice pitch. I don't ice climb. I just can hang on to my tools for a long time. Thankfully, I was able to do some ice climbing and then some fairly significant dry tooling routes and mixed routes in Vale um, uh, a couple months ago. And then I was like, okay, well, I feel like I've earned my letters now.
I want to get. I'm going to make
But I
sure
still
we
got
get.
a lot to
I'm gonna,
go.
I want to make sure that we have the some of these pictures posted in the YouTube comments because I've looked at them and it's insane,
Yeah,
man. How tall was the Fang?
yeah.
The how tall was that one?
Like 120 feet
Of
of
straight
just
ice.
pure ice, straight ice.
that
Yeah,
that's a dope ass picture. That one's definitely going in the comments.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
the Safira is been the hardest route I've done so far, or one of them. Definitely of the mixed orientation. There was a little bit of ice on it, It was 60-ish meters, so almost 180 feet
Wow.
of just, there's like 100 feet of kind of like steep roofy climbing, and then you get to a good rest, and then it's like another 80 or 90 feet of just horizontal roof across the rest of the amphitheater in Vail. So I
Oh
actually
wow.
climb behind the Fang, and then finish up on a little ice sliver um, up way up there.
Right. Well, man, I appreciate you taking your time to do this once again. I think
Yeah,
you've
no
got a bright
problem.
future in professional sports. You're a very determined person. It's great to talk to you again. It's been years.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. The days of Vail were fudge. That was 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I
I think
left
was that winter that
2018.
we worked together.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I think I remember that because you moved back down to Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, man, I can't wait to talk again. Hopefully, next time I talk to you, you've got your podium spot.
That would be cool. That, or I've done one of those other hard routes. That would be sweet.
There you go. Yeah, little goals, right? The checkpoints.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has. Great talking to you, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for indulging us in your sport.
Yeah, it's goofy, it's fun, and it's just kind of a niche thing that people are like, "What is dry tooling? What is mixed climbing?" And then it's just like, yeah, it's you just kind of like hanging on to these big handles for a really long time, doing these really goofy gymnastics moves. My dad sent me a photo of a sloth, and I was like, or maybe I sent it to him, just like hanging. It's just like hanging there with like from a branch or something. And I was like, yeah, that kind of checks out, minus the sloth part, because I'm anything but slow, and yeah, I'm just always going like full gas all the time.
Sounds like at your sports and your occupation.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
It's good, man. Keep it up.
it's it's tough. It's basically 5 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. every day, of just like go go go,
It's
and
awesome,
then I
man.
rest, and then I do it again the next day.
And repeat.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you again soon, man.
Yep. Talk to you later, Alan.
All right. See ya.
Later. Bye.